Ladies and gentlemen, this is David Mirikitani with another episode of Weighing In. We're brought to you by USA Wrestling, the national governing body for wrestling in the United States, and by Nike Wrestling. Go to athleteps.com for all of your Nike and USA Wrestling branded gear. I feel like, Mark, the last month or so, more of these podcasts have been you and me or you and GT than all three of us. GT is actually at the Worlds right now, so he saw the historic match this morning. We're recording this on Wednesday morning. We're going to get into all that. But first of all, good morning, my friend. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, man. It's we're on the cusp of college wrestling season. It's
this weekend.
Yes. And I probably say this periodically, but I always had slight concern that certain weeks of the year there wouldn't be enough to talk about. You know, when we decided to do this podcast year round, and you're primarily a college guy, college wrestling guy, GT, but primarily an international guy. I try to, keep my fingers on a little bit of everything, but there's months of the year, especially in the non-collegiate season, where you feel like it might be slow, especially when we were at track wrestling, because it started as a collegiate podcast.
Sure.
There's always something going on, and we should probably get into what's going on this week. We'll start with the Worlds, the age group Worlds, the U23s, and then the senior Worlds. I guess we'll start with senior Worlds and just pull up where we're at so far. So Greco, the results for Greco are this. Let me pull them up so we can just talk about them specifically. But it's obviously the non-Olympic weights. We have the four weights there. Havisov went, or I guess first is Brady Kuntz. So I was a little surprised by Kuntz because he looked so good at the trials, but he loses to Sanjeev 5-3. Sanjeev doesn't pull him through the repechage, so he's eliminated. Havisov gets tech-falled 10-0 by Mamadli from Azerbaijan, and then Amiev, Bulgaria, beats him 7-1. So, Mamadli obviously made the finals. I'm going to skip Peak. We'll come back to him. Kikanu loses to the Swede, Olofsson 5-1. Peak probably had one of the most interesting tournaments I've seen a guy have in a long time. He beats the Iranian, who's world champion, 11-3, and then gets tech-falled by the Croatian 9-0 Ellinger, and then he doesn't get pulled through. Full disclosure, I called Benji Peak. He did a match with Spencer Woods at Beat the Streets, New England this summer. You know about it. I think you were watching the stream because I told you about it. He is an incredibly engaging young man, like really easy to talk to, really, really likable, funny, loves Greco. I think he's one of the faces of Greco going forward for the United States because of how explosive he is, which we saw in that first match. But, man, kind of crazy that he goes 0-1 or 1-1, loses, gets tech-falled. It's crazy he beats a world champion and then gets tech-falled, right?
Yes. But that's Greco. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say I'm surprised. I'm surprised that he beat a world champion. I mean, obviously, anytime an American can beat a world champion in Greco, we're surprised because we're not the strongest Greco country by far. So, great for him. If I'm not mistaken, he's a Minnesota kid, isn't he, David? Or Wisconsin? I think somewhere up north, if I'm not mistaken. But
I don't know where he's originally from. I
remember watching him break into it about 3 or 4 years ago on the scene and beating some really good guys and, some of our better guys in Greco. And he was really fun to watch. He does a lot of really good things.
Yeah. Well, I think the most important thing for him, if you're a Greco fan, is he goes for stuff, right? Like he doesn't stand around. He doesn't wait. the obvious argument for that is live by the sword, die by the sword, so to speak. But he's a goer for sure. I actually think if you are for the future of USA Wrestling, a tremendously positive result, because I think you take the massive win over maybe the surprising loss, considering he had just won that match.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's coachable moments there, right, Mark? Like you can go back to him and say, hey, and I don't know that he overlooked the next guy, but maybe wasn't as mentally prepared. Maybe just got surprised by the physicality or the suddenness of match 2. But you can certainly coach that. What you can't coach is being able to talk positively to a guy about beating a world champion.
Yeah.
You know that. I mean, we coach junior college a lot, and we both had our share of good guys, but we also had some guys that were pretty good, but you had to coach them, and they had to beat guys they weren't supposed to beat, both in the room and on Saturdays. And I shouldn't speak for you, but I guess I'll ask you, and see if you agree. But I think a lot of times, like if a kid had a match or two that was a way above expected norm result, you would gladly take that with a letdown mentally or physically, because you could coach the letdown. It's hard to get that person confidence until they win it, and win a match they're not supposed to, and that's chicken and the egg, right? Yep. Hard to win without confidence. Can't get confidence without winning. So, I mean, and I know your schedule for years and our schedule for years to just go to all these 4-year tournaments and wrestle as many good guys as possible and beat people we weren't supposed to beat on paper, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of what we did, is take our kids to get noticed by the 4-year schools and go out and compete against the best competition you can get. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to coach a kid that has just beaten somebody that they had no business even walking on the mat against, in their heads or in your head, like a world champion. And then you wrestle a lesser opponent, and a lot of times you're still thinking about that first win. So you're not hungry. You just got that, you just got fed. And so it's different, and he'll learn from it.
Yeah.
But this shows that he's got the skills to compete with the best in the world. That's something that not everybody's going to ever get. He's got that now. So now he's just got to go back to work and clean things up every time he goes out there.
Yeah, my state tournament, my sophomore year, I beat the guy that was supposed to beat me in the quarterfinals. I was like 29-1, and he was 30-0. And back then he was 8 district champs, so it was a complete blind draw. I think we were the 2 best guys. I mean, he ended up not taking third, but I think if you had ranked us, we would have been 1 and 2, because the guy beat in the finals I'd already beaten. So, but I remember I called my dad. He was at your nationals, and he's like, I was all excited. He goes, it sounds like you're happy to take 6th. And if you're not watching this, just listening, Mark had that sort of knowing laugh there of, that sounds like something Ron Mirikitani would say.
Yep.
And he goes, you didn't go there to take 6th. He gave me actually a really good pep talk. I mean, I could go through the whole thing, but the bottom line was I just kind of hung up, and I'm going to place at state, and I beat the best guy. And in the semifinal, this guy headbutted me right in the nose, took me down, and slammed me on my head out of bounds. And I had enough blood that they stopped it. And our assistant coach goes, okay, are you actually ready to wrestle now? That was exactly what we're talking about. Like, and it was 100 years ago, and I still vividly remember that. So it doesn't, sometimes you have to touch the stove. You have to realize you'll get burned, and just learn the lesson the hard way instead of the easy way. So, I mean, I haven't talked to Benji yet, but I might try to get him on the show. He's a really fun kid to talk to. I mean, he's a great young man to talk to, but just like super engaging. And, I'd be interested in his perspective. I don't know if it's a full hour podcast, but I'll probably reach out to him and just see if he sees it differently. I would also imagine he sees it as a lost opportunity. which I think is what you'd want your athlete to see it as.
Yep.
So, okay, we might as well just stay on Greco for a minute. So on the senior level Greco, Max Black at 60 went 0-1. Robert Perez won against the Chilean and then got tech fault, so he went 1-1. Justice Scott went 0-1. And then Malalashvili, GT and I talked about this. He went 1, 2, 3, 4-1, and then lost in the finals to take second. And then Volker went 0-1. So your thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, anytime we can put somebody in the worlds in the finals, it's a great day. So kudos to him. But I mean, we still got a long ways to go, but we're starting to see some success, even if it's just beating one guy that we had no business beating or making it into the finals. It's showing progress. So we're heading in a better direction than we have been in the past. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, and the other side of the Greco, Billy Sullivan took 5th. Jonathan Bruley took 20th. Hunter Garvin took 12th. Peyton Jacobson had himself a good tournament. Mark went win-win, lost-win, and then lost in the bronze medal match. And my guy, KJ Miley, and I say my guy, he's from St. Louis. He's a border brawl guy, great family, so shout out to them. He ended up, let me pull this up here, I think it's 12th. Yeah, 12th, beat the Pole first round, then lost to the Russian, who pulled him through, and then lost to the Georgian for to be eliminated. So it goes back to what we've talked about before about Greco and just, you know, you see sort of, this is where you start to see us fall behind. He's in the college age group stuff, especially because these guys aren't doing Greco year round. So and then they, you know, they're the best of all the guys that don't do Greco year round.
Yeah. And
then they go wrestle against kids that are, I don't know why I keep saying kids today. They're wrestling against young men that are, this is what they do. You know, and they're not doubles. Like most of these guys are also, this is where you start to see more area of specialization too, right? Yeah. You know, where it's not as many guys are double dipping. So on the women's side, on the senior level here, Jakar goes 0-1, loses a heartbreaker to the Indian 2-1. Macy Kilty beat Alexis Gomez, beat the Romanian, beat the Azerbaijanian, loses to the Russian, and then wins the bronze medal match. She was on the mat right before Taylor, like 1 or 2 matches before Taylor. So I was actually up this morning. I didn't intend to be. I just couldn't sleep. I don't know why, but so saw that. And Welker makes it to the bronze medal match too. And we're recording this. I haven't checked to see if she won yet or not. But your thoughts on Villascusa? She was in the bronze medal match. So your thoughts on her results and win those 4 right there.
Yeah, I think as a team, I thought we wrestled pretty well. Obviously, Japan is still, you know, somebody that we're going to have to go through every tournament. But besides that, I thought the women wrestled fairly well. Winchester, a little disappointed in. She didn't have a better tournament. But I haven't seen her wrestle a lot in the last year internationally. I know she's competed in the United States, but I think a lot of our problem, David, for some of the women is we're not getting out wrestling in some of these big tournaments, and they're just staying in states. So I think we need to do a little bit of traveling. We need to get the competition of other countries, get a better feel for it, and I think we'll have more success.
That's a hot take. I don't know if I'd have to look at more data, especially for these 4, right, to see if I agree. I mean, Villascusa, I think it's probably just who's wrestling well because this is her first world team, right? So it's not like, and I think this is Kilty's 9th medal, age group wise, or including age groups. So incredibly accomplished. I think it's interesting, right? Because like you had somebody like Amita Lohr, who is wrestling in everything and having great success, and then she aged out of like U17s, and she may be aged out of U20s now. I don't know. Probably like by a day or a year or something, you know.
Yeah.
She could still wrestle U23s, but I know like for me, it's 100 degrees less. But like once I won high school state, I wasn't going to go back and wrestle in the cadet folk style state tournament. It's like, okay, like I'm probably good enough to win that. I need to be wrestling in the freestyle and Greco 9th and 10th and 11th and 12th grade tournaments. I think it's a different training cycle for a lot of these athletes, period, right? Like on the senior level, because these are all athletes that probably, I think without exception on our team, tried to make the team at a different weight. And in most cases moved up.
Yep.
So weren't cutting any weight, right? But they weren't peaking for this. They were peaking for the trials and then theoretically peaking again for the Olympics, and then you have to regroup. And there's no senior level matches to wrestle, Mark, between you go to the trials. I think there's one last ranking tournament overseas for points, but you're really not wrestling in that if you didn't make the team. Like, I don't think, I don't know the point of that. I mean, there's probably a reason I'm missing, but it just doesn't feel like there's a lot to be gained there. Plus, I don't think mentally you're probably in a great situation. You just lost your dream. And so, yeah, I don't know. I'm not saying that the results aren't amplified by what you're saying, that they should have had more competitions, but I don't know that this year, and this is such a weird year, right? The quad year is always a weird year because you have two separate world championships. You have the Worlds and the Olympics.
Yep.
And you have, you can't wrestle in both, just like you couldn't wrestle in both, but it's a different reason why and all these other things. So kind of crazy. All right, let's talk about GT and I covered the U23 guys last week. So I think we're good on the freestyle side. So I think we're good there. Let's talk about seniors, non-Olympics. So we can pull up the results, but I mean, the big thing to talk about is Taylor Sajalayev.
Yep.
So I talked to you before we went on the air to see if you watched it. You did. This is one of the things I think you're the absolute best at is talking about matches and reasons why things happened. And I'm so glad you're doing this now with freestyle because it's not that different. You've made the commitment to understanding freestyle, watching more matches. You and I talk about them a lot.
Sure.
You used to ask me a lot of stuff 3 years ago. Now you're telling me stuff.
Well, I just didn't understand why they did some.
No, I'm saying I felt smarter 3 years ago. Now I'm listening to you be smarter than me. So
I mean, there's times, David, where the official's actually helping the guy back to the center of the mat because he's tired, and that's okay. For some reason, that's okay.
All the people that are on Iowa are very, very proud of you. Like that is a full, I grew up in Iowa, live in Iowa sentence, and I'm here for it. That's a compliment, folks. If you're watching or listening at Iowa at home, the importance of cardio, okay, the importance of conditioning. And I saw somebody say like you should change blood time and injury time in international wrestling, but that's a different conversation. So this podcast won't come out till Friday. So I'm sure everyone will have seen the match by then. So I wouldn't say this if this was streaming live, okay? But Sajalayev beats Taylor 7-0. I'll let you talk about the match first. Go ahead.
Well, the match was not really indicative of what you wanted to see, obviously. David did all the shooting.
Literally
all the shooting. And Sajalayev does what he does. He just down blocked and spun behind. David did not change things up. He was doing that right single to the outside, and then he's trying to come against him to pull him back. Sadulaya's hips were just so strong. He put him in that chest wrap and did it actually once and got a takedown off it right at the end to get the 7 points. But I guess I was surprised that, and I'm not surprised because David's got, so many pokers in the fire right now with coaching and everything else. You kind of wonder how much actual time he put into preparing for this, and I'm sure he worked hard. But the game plan going in should have been, you got to get him tired. You've got to force him out into the deeper waters, as the kids like to say, and he never did that. I mean, Sadulayev wasn't even breathing hard at the end of the match because he didn't have to do anything. All he did was sprawl and spin behind, which is amazing. There were no fake shots making him move his feet and coming back up. It was just real hanging on each other, and David would take a shot and stop and get chest wrapped and just held, and then they go back up, and then he'd do it again, and this time he saw it coming and got his legs back and spun behind him. It was disappointing to the point, David, where you expected this to be the match because everybody's wanting to see this, and I was really excited for it.
The PA announcer literally said the match we've all been waiting for. Yeah, it's interesting because you and I have watched wrestling and coached wrestling for a long time, and we're real friends. So you tend, and I really respect you, and I think you respect me, and so I think you tend to kind of see things similarly, but you always have a wrinkle or two that is a little bit different, which I like from my take. A couple things. I agree with everything you said. I think one of the hard things on a game plan, if this is your last tournament, okay, because David said this is my last tournament, it's really difficult to execute a game plan of just pull on his head, get him tired, don't shoot. When your entire career has been on attacking and scoring points and being offensive and not waiting and not leaving it in, in the MMA, don't leave it in the hands of the judges kind of thing, right? So Taylor got the first verbal passivity against Sadulayev, which was encouraging. And then Sadulayev did one fake shot because I saw that was the only time Taylor did like that double knee sprawl. Okay. But that was it. Taylor, they said they spent a lot of time working on that chest wrap. He didn't look very comfortable there. He didn't come close to scoring when he shot and was in the chest wrap. And I will say this because I sent the link to a couple of guys I work with in jiu-jitsu, like a bunch of guys, and I'm like, people are teaching all these crazy counters, Cole rolls, ankle passes. The best counter against somebody who's really good, and it's really also true in jiu-jitsu and MMA in a lot of cases, is just a really good sprawl. Like, as the match went from 3-0, 5-0, 7-0, Taylor's volume of shots, his quantity of shots got better. His quality of shots, I would argue, got worse because it was less setups, more I just got to get to the legs. If I can just get him in a scramble, I can get him tired kind of thing, which is perfectly reasonable. And I'm not saying he thought that for sure, but it certainly was wrestling that way. But I think I don't know how much you can simulate that chest lock. Like, I think it goes back to like Greco, right? Like, you want to be good at Greco, you got to stop lifts and stop gut wrenches. And the best way to do this is to practice with a guy who's got a great gut wrench or a great lift. I don't know that David Taylor has access to anybody who's got that chest wrap. I also thought it was interesting, and I don't know if this is an age thing. I'm actually really curious on your opinion on this. Like, Taylor and Snyder feel like they've gotten away from that head and heel ankle pick, the attack below the knee. Like, Snyder hasn't shot it He didn't shoot at the Olympics at all.
Uh-uh.
I can't remember if he shot it against Trumbull, but it felt like most of Trumbull attacks were at the knee and up and run you out of bounds kind of thing. Tons of push outs. Obviously, Taylor only had 6 minutes here, but the best shot he got, the first one, he did get in deep once.
And he got down below the knee also for a second.
But the shot wasn't intended for that.
No, but that's where he ended. Yeah.
He went fake same side, and then my dad calls it a cross grain. You called it the shot across the body, or however you want to say it. Fake right, go left, toward that outside step that everybody's hitting now. But he was in high crotch position. He was big chest, back up, or back, head in the air, back straight, big chest, and kind of got Sadulayev upside down, and then Sadulayev almost intentionally went there. Like he tried to chest wrap him, got the post and lift, and then he just helicoptered himself off and changed that angle where you have to. I'm demonstrating here like anybody's want, but like where if you follow, you're going to get exposed. So he let go, and that's how he came out of it. I think if you're the coach and you says there's really good lessons to be learned here, just being super fundamental on sprawling, because there's like 6 times in the second period where Sadulayev just sprawled, pelvis bones completely on the mat, blocked both knees, or double inside spikes and just stayed. I think the things that it's always easy to be right after you see something. I think Sadulayev's stronger. I think he had a good weight cut. He didn't look tired. Mm-mm. And not a lot happened to make him tired, but we don't underestimate just wrestling David Taylor and just the amount of anxiety you would have, your level of tired going into a match like that. Sadulayev, I think they announced 5-time world champion, 2-time Olympic champion. Like, he's probably the favorite, so it's when you're the favorite and you have to wrestle somebody who reasonably can beat you, that's nerve-wracking. So,
and I think another thing, David, and we had talked about this in the past, and I know not everybody agrees, but when you're wrestling the best of the best and you've never had a feel for them, it's tough. Now, obviously, Sadulayev's never had a feel of David Taylor, what he can do, the things that he does, but he is so basic. He doesn't do anything real special. He rarely shoots. Sadulayev. Besides,
don't say that.
No, what I'm saying is he doesn't do a lot of shooting. He's a great defensive wrestler and has a great chest wrap, and he can helicopter his legs around somebody. He's got really good hips, but he doesn't put on an offensive show like David Taylor does. And there's a difference.
And there's a difference between what you said and what other people might perceive as true. He does some incredibly special things. Most of them are re-attack type of things and not attack initiated. So I don't want people to say that you don't think he's not a special wrestler.
Oh, no, he's probably the best in the world. I mean, he was for years, David.
Yeah.
Before. But what I'm saying is that we had talked about this in the past. It's always good to have a feel for somebody. And we had talked about Spencer Lee. Why I was always so high on Spencer Lee. A lot of people thought he's always hurt. He's never going to be able to compete, not going to make the world team. Yeah. And he got healthy enough to try it. And I kept saying, I don't think people understand until you've actually wrestled him and felt it. It's going to be hard for them to beat him the first time out.
Nick Piccinini actually said that, because Piccinini probably has the most iconic win against, well, I shouldn't say that, Matt Ramos, but the most okay. No, I got my, but like one of the most, probably in terms of home crowd for sure, right, in the duel. Sure. But your point about feel in general is important, right? And like that's like Spencer Lee, Higuchi, like neither one of them had felt each other, and you're figuring it out. And I think what people forget is what it's like to be in a match or a fight, like if you're MMA or jiu-jitsu, and like your coach is, you just got to go, or like your girlfriend or the people support you or your team, like, got to go, bro, you got to go. Yeah, your brain knows that, right? But like you don't want to go and take yourself out of the match or the fight. And that's a very real concern, because I was thinking about this as I watched this match. I catnapped for a while, but literally I dream very vividly, and I'm like, if you want to be good at wrestling right away, whenever you start, like you start when you're 6 or you start when you're 12 or something like that, if you get really good at defense on your feet right away and get really good at fundamental defense and reattacks, and you're good at pushing, you're good at going forward, and if you get to an inside tie, you have one shot, you can win a lot of matches.
Yep.
Like a lot of matches. That is a formula for success to level X. Okay. And it's probably, there's multiple formulas to the level X, but it might be the fastest one. Because you can teach sprawl, you can teach down block, you can teach clear your arm out of front headlock position, get to short offense, and you can teach chasing hamstrings to both sides and moving your feet. And I'm telling you, I teach this stuff to jiu-jitsu guys. It's the easiest thing for them to do because there's less variance. It's completely intuitive. And it also, they're scared to death of full-time wrestlers. So they're like, okay, well, if I can get my legs back, it prevents a lot of the problems that exist fighting a wrestler. So Sajjalaya, the other thing people have to remember is this. The vast majority of these athletes in this tournament lost at their Olympic trials. Okay. The Russian athletes didn't. Okay. So these are our number twos. And I say that with the utmost level of respect. Okay. But James Green, Burroughs, and Taylor all lost at the trials. Okay. They're amazing. You take those 3 guys, if you picked one of their resumes and spread it out over 3 guys, there's all 3 of those hypothetical guys would be amazing. Okay, but they still didn't win our trials. And only Taylor was in the finals.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That people got to consider that. Like there's a difference. Vito, he made a weight in 2021 he'll never make again, I believe. I don't think he's ever going down to 57 kilos ever again. So but he wasn't in our trials because of the weight.
But he is the returning world champ from last year at 61 kilos.
100%. But I think that's one of the reasons why we have different expectations for him. Well, and the whole thing with Vito is, well, if he has it together, because is it the guy that was injured and lost to Crookham, or is it the guy that ran through the worlds? So the other results here, Burroughs is 2-0, Vito's 1-0, James Green is 1-1. So I'm trying to pull it up. Yeah, so Vito won 4-2 against the Indian, now has the Serbian.
Then he's going to have a heck of a match
with Ono.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't look at the brackets. Does Ono beat Ugiev, or is Ugiev on the other side?
Oh, yeah, he beat him 10-3, 10-2.
Really?
He's tough.
Let me pull it up. Yeah.
He's really good.
Brackets, here we go.
And I thought Vito was quick. This kid's quick.
Yeah, it's hard to read these scores on here. No, he teched Ugiev, I think. I don't know. It's hard to read these.
I thought it was 10-2.
You might be right. There's something underneath his name that says 12-0, but it's hard to tell if that's the result from the previous round.
Yeah.
But anyway, so there was a 32-man bracket, and they drew the pigtail. So then he beat Lee. He just made Vito's probably wrestling right now.
Yeah, I would imagine he is pretty soon, at least. So, yeah, but I mean, I wasn't trying to say Sadulayev isn't a phenomenal wrestler, because he is. He's iconic. He'll be talked about, in 30 years still, being one of the greatest of all time. It's just, unless you have a feel for these kind of guys when you're wrestling somebody that good, the first time out, you may think you have a game plan, but as soon as, the old saying, David, as soon as you get hit in the face,
you
find out if you can, how tough you are. Well, unless you've wrestled him and actually got the feel, you don't really know what you can do and what you can't do against him.
No, that's certainly fair. I'm watching. There's 7 seconds left in the Vito match, and Vito's winning 6-3. Just went up 6-3, so he's gonna hopefully hold on here. But the whole once you get punched in your mouth, the world looks different is absolutely true. So, this guy got in really deep here. Might have got 2 at the buzzer. I don't know. Went white paddle. So either 6-3 or 6-5. Looks like 6-3. So he's into the semi. Beat the Serb. So got a lot of windows open here right now. I'm trying to shut a few down. So anyway, that's I should do play-by-play. I'd be good at that.
There you go. All your windows open. Let's talk a little bit about college wrestling, David, because it's going to be starting this weekend. What are you most excited for?
Well, I'm excited about college wrestling, right? Like when we coached, this was always one of the most fun weekends of the year. You're optimistic, right? Especially when you knew you had good teams. Like we had several, you had a bunch. And so, like teams that you thought could contend. Our friend Jim Ziegler said, once you've been on, the top of page 1 in that first, second, or third slot, if you're not even really looking at the team scores to see if you're 10th or 14th.
Yeah. And
that's one of the truer sentences I've ever heard. Like you just don't look at it the same way. So, you're not a big social media guy, and I got a new phone, and I finally got my old Twitter account onto my new phone. So I was like, I was missing a lot of stuff, but AJ Ferrari and Nick Stemmen have been going back and forth with each other.
Didn't this happen like 3 years ago too?
Well, everything was 3 years ago.
That's what I thought.
Okay. Yeah. And the other thing is this, like when people are talking about how long Ferrari has been out, we should actually be accurate. Okay. He won the 21 NCAAs. Okay. Mm-hmm. So it's March of 21. And he wrestled basically in January of 22. When the car accident happened. So he's been out 2 years, 9 months, 2 years, 10 months. Okay.
Sure.
He's been out basically 2 full seasons, 22, 23, 23, 24.
Yep.
Okay. If you just assume one of those was a normal redshirt year, and if you said the other one was the Olympic redshirt year, I'm not sure people would be as hesitant on whether he can win or not. I think it's the legal stuff and the fact that he's certainly at a non-traditional power school. Like the last time Cal State Bakersfield was really good was, I remember this, is Joe Gonzalez and John Azevedo, like when I was a kid. And that was when D2s could wrestle in D1s if you won it. Like Joe Gonzalez went 55-0. I still remember that. Because he wrestled such a cool style, like super smooth on his feet, lots of knee pulls, swing singles, things like that. So I loved how he wrestled. I think that's interesting at 197. I think the other interesting match is individual side is Trey Munoz and Buchanan. So I highlighted a couple duels here, probably those 2 duels, and then Missouri and Northern Colorado. You'll see Alira's against Josh Edmond, and trying to think who Missouri is going to wrestle at 57. It's not going to be Cam Steed, right? He's going to go 65.
Okay.
Well, Vinny Zurban is who is ranked as high as number 2 and is from St. Louis, Missouri, or right across the river, Bethalto, Illinois. So you're an Iowa guy.
I am.
You told me that you weren't even sure Buchanan was going to wrestle first semester. So, that if you heard that, it probably has some legs, not necessarily true, but has some legs. Let's assume he wrestles, because otherwise it's really not a fun conversation. But you're really good at this. What's the point spread on Buchanan Munoz?
2.5.
Okay. So for people that don't know how this works, what we're saying is if you pick Buchanan, you're giving away 2.5 points. So he has to win by 3. And Mark and I would bet we don't do it much anymore, but I bet 1,000 matches.
At least. Probably, yeah, at least 1,000 matches.
And
we're probably within 15 of each other.
I was going to say, I think you're up 5-10.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we did it a couple different ways. We used to do it where the disadvantage is one person sets the line. And so like Mark sets the line and then I get to pick which side of it. The advantage is to go second. Okay. And so what we tried to do one year, and it made me so mad. You hit so many of them on the head. Like instead of 2.5, like you pick 2 or 3. And then whichever one you pick, you win that as well. Like if it's a tie,
sure,
you get the number.
Because you picked it.
Right, because you picked it. And so and you and me would just bet a plate of wings for the whole year. It was just kind of fun. I know one year you ran me off the railroad tracks pretty early, and then one year I killed you in the Big 10s and Big 12s. And
you were run off the tracks before those 2 tournaments. But I think I went like 3 for 40.
Yeah.
It was like, I don't even know why I'm picking. I'll just take the opposite of what I think.
Yeah, you're George Costanza. Just go the opposite. But I think, like I was thinking about it, I think the line's about 3. Because it's also different now, too, with the takedowns, right?
Yeah, and I kind of forgot about that for a second. I think he's a takedown better. I think I haven't seen – here's the thing. I haven't seen wrestle-offs. I haven't seen any results. I haven't seen anything from Iowa. I don't even know who the starting lineup's going to be, David. I mean, I hear rumors, but I haven't – they haven't come out with who they're taking. They got so many kids that they could bring on this trip, maybe 18. I don't know what they can travel with. I think it's 16 or 18 kids.
Well, they'll take all the kids are allowed to. And, I mean, they'll probably take like a Ferrari who's allowed to travel. You and I were talking the other day about Iowa and Penn State, like in a duel, and how it would be very difficult for Iowa to win that duel, but they would probably have a better chance with Nelson Brands against Levi Haynes, and then Arnold or PK against Starachi. Like if they go Brands, Starachi, we've seen that match, and while it was close in points, it wasn't really close. And then it feels like Haynes is better than both Arnold and PK. And PK just got done wrestling at U23s, so my guess is Arnold will start.
Yeah, that's what I'm guessing also.
Without a wrestle-off. Like, I don't think that's fair.
He may be at 84. He may be wrestling 84 at Oregon State.
Who?
I'm sure he's going to stay within the parameters of, getting back down.
I think the real question is, and there's a way to find this out, but it'd be really interesting just to know. Let's assume Gabe goes 74 and Nelson goes 84. What weight did Nelson weigh in at?
Yep.
And so for people that don't know, whatever you weigh in at, you can only lose 1.5% per week. And then the next week is 1.5% of that new number. So to give you an easy example, if you weigh 200, 1.5% the first week is 3 pounds. Next week, 1.5% of 197 is slightly less than 3 pounds. Okay. But, to go from 84 to 74 is a 5-week process if you weighed in at a full 184. I mean, I saw Flo do an interview with Pendleton and with Munoz separately.
Yeah.
And Pendleton, to his credit, mentioned that the biggest, I don't know the criteria the way he said it certainly wasn't like including football. I think it might have been the biggest non-basketball game might have included basketball. I don't know. I doubt it, but maybe that it was a tremendous revenue generator, the duel they had there last year. I think it might have been with Penn State, but they have Iowa and Oklahoma State not back to back, but within like 14 or 21 days of each other.
Yep. 3 weeks, I think.
Yeah. And then I think it's called Gill Arena. And so, and they have a great picture with like the fire and the spotlights and all that stuff. And that's awesome.
And they do a raised stage also. So,
and I used to think that stuff didn't matter. And then I run Border Bro and it matters. Like it's interesting because if you look at it strictly from a revenue standpoint, it doesn't matter and it's a cost. But you don't know how many people just go because, okay, well, there's going to be fire and there's going to be smoke and there's going to be a raised stage and it's an event, it's entertaining. I also think they're getting, and this is no way a degradation. Like I think Chael Sonnen's helping out there, which is awesome. You know, I mean, if he puts on his social media, go to the Oregon State meet, he probably sells 500 tickets for them, which is awesome.
And they do something a lot of schools don't do. They have like they serve alcohol, they serve beer in the arena, but they also have a huge beer tent outside the arena before it. And so they're getting their fans a little bit loosened up a little bit to make it, you know.
I don't know that that's true, but assuming that that's true, and I believe you're accurate, like tailgate things and stuff like that, it feels like more of an event, right? Like I also think it gives you, I think if you're somebody with young kids, maybe you don't want to be around the drinking.
Yeah.
But the people that are all adults that just want to have a beverage, and maybe you're not getting hammered or anything, but like a drink or two, people drink because they enjoy it. So if you allow something that they enjoy to happen, then, you know, there's that. So what do you expect to see out of Ferrari? Because I saw him get on a scale at 197, and then they were having simulation matches, you know, at Bakersfield. I mean, I don't know who the hell he's wrestling at Bakersfield that's going to give him a match. I mean, maybe Anthony Valencia, but even he's too small. But what do we expect from Ferrari this year? Because you didn't pick him to win it, but you picked him to place, which I thought was fascinating. And well, because he just seems to me like I don't know that he would wrestle on the backside. You know, I'm just saying, like we've all coached guys like that. I could be wrong.
I don't know what to expect from him. You know, it's like you're watching something and you just can't stop watching it because you know something's going to happen. It may be a crash. It may be, you know, he may look just as good, if not better, than he was at Oklahoma State 3 years ago, David. I don't know. He's very gifted. He does things that very few 197-pounders have ever been able to do.
Yeah.
So he brings a different problem when you're game planning, like, you know, David Taylor tried to game plan today, just by the way he wrestles. And he's a great athlete. I mean, phenomenal athlete. And he is strong. We already know that because, you know,
665 pounds.
Well, you know, yeah, he can do those things. So I would expect him.
He's explosive and powerful. Like there's strong and then there's explosive, and he's
pretty good on the mat. I mean, he puts a lot of pressure on you. He
was good at that stall ride when you could drop down. Like he would drop down for 4 seconds. I mean, I don't think he like broke anybody down and turned them. So I mean, he could ride,
but he wears on people, and it takes a lot out of you.
Well, the match he had, I think, was in the semis and natties against Warner. He did that drop down thing 10 times, and the Iowa fans were going nuts. And he's so smart. Like you hear the referee counting, and you know, at 3.5, he's starting to come up.
Yep.
You know, and then switch sides, go deep waist, attempt to chop, and then drop back down. I think he's like a lot of guys now, and part of it is just how good people are on bottom. So this is not an insult. Like it's going to come down to who's better on their feet. Like he's if he's riding, it's only to get riding time.
Yep.
It's a combination of he took you down 2 or 3 times, is trying to chip away 20, 30 seconds each time, so he has time to get out with his choice on bottom, or if he were to lose a takedown.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's certainly favored against Stemet. That would be an interesting line to set, because I think the real interesting thing about him is, where's his cardio? Right? Like he was in great shape at Oklahoma State. Like he was, and Chris Perry was on my pod and said that dude works as hard as anybody I've ever coached. Okay, you don't generally hear that sentence about 200-pound guys.
Mm-hmm.
It's not an insult. It's just kind of a fact. I mean, you said something, and for people, we kind of go through a docket of things, but we don't. You were going to say something to me about the David Taylor match. I go, save it for the pot.
Yeah.
Like, we don't really go through. It's not scripted. There's topics. And then I generally listen to you and just stick with where I think it's the most entertaining, or at least most interesting to me. You said I have no idea what to expect. I actually am kind of in the same place, right? Like, if he were to get tired and lose 4-1 to Stemet, I wouldn't be surprised. I think he wins, but I mean, I wouldn't be shocked. I'd be surprised, but not shocked. If he beats him 2 takedowns to 1 in riding time, he gets an unsportsmanlike conduct at the end for pushing his face in the mat or flexing on him, that would not be surprising at all.
Nope.
Like that.
That's why you want to watch it. I mean, you just want to see what's going to happen. You know, I predict him to win by 2 takedowns. I think he's better. If he was in really good shape, I would probably put the line at 8, because he beat him that bad first time they've wrestled, and he's just gifted. But because we haven't seen him, I have no idea who he works out with in the room. I'm sure he's going to be fine, David.
What's interesting to say, I'm sure he's going to be fine
in this match.
Yes,
I want to see him. I want to see him in Vegas when he's going to have some real competition, and it's a grind, because you're going to have to wrestle 2 or 3 matches in one day. That's a whole different, beast.
And when you look at it, a bunch of the 197s that are good are there.
Yep.
So that's interesting too, right? So, yeah, I think, and then Josh Edmond, Alirez is a big favorite, but Edmond lost in the round of 12, was really close. Lost to Vambar, I think, in the blood round match, who had a great tournament from like the 26 seed or 27 seed, I believe. I got a chance to talk to his dad a little bit. He's one of those P&L coaches, runs a really good club. But Edmond's the kind of guy, if you shoot and you climb, you'll get thrown. And he's really explosive at getting the legs. I feel like he was a guy that would win all the matches he was supposed to spectacularly and then lose all the matches he was supposed to and then lose most of the coin flips. But it felt like he got over that hump near the end of the season and then at Nationals. And for Missouri's got a really interesting team this year. They got guys coming back at a lot of weights, but not a lot of proven points. Like Certain, he's had moments, but, he beats Bradley, but not, he's never scored more than, I think, 2 or 3 points at Nationals. Oh. Cade Moore, I think he pinned Latona last year, but
he was hurt for a good chunk of the year, though, wasn't he?
He had that bar fight. Yeah. But yeah, he was all cut up. But again, like his highest high is pretty impressive, but didn't do it at Nationals. Like Edmond, we just talked about. So they're going to start new guys at 49 and 57 this year. And then Steed will be at 65. The back half of the lineup's pretty familiar. Steed, who's had a really good redshirt year and almost beat Muller in the wrestle-off. Keegan goes to 74. Hawks is at 84. He's a round of 12 guy. Rocky Elam, who is on pace to be a 5-time All-American. And then they're going to wrestle Nitzel instead of Zach Elam. But, their strength of their lineup is kind of 57 to 97 or 65 to 97 for sure. My brain just went for a second where Steed was at 57 and Keegan 65, but they're up a weight. But they don't have a ton of proven points. Like if you said, what are the number of All-Americans at Mizzou this year? I think it's 3. I think it's Rocky. I think it's Keegan. And then I think it's Hawks or Edmond. They were both like Hawks was round to 16. And then Mizzou did something, I don't think intentionally, but like they had 3 guys fighting for that 184 spot and 2 of them transferred out.
Yep.
So it's Colton. He's the only guy on the roster. I like Colton, and Colton came out and did a great clinic with Cade Moore. And then my friend Mike Rogers at Border Brawl. Couldn't have been nicer to the kids. They were great. And that's part of it too. Like, I think most of these kids are really nice. It's you kind of, I don't mean emotional, like you cry or something, but like you emotionally get attached to kids. You're like, well, that guy's really nice. I could see him winning. Well, that has nothing to do with whether he's going to win or not.
No, it doesn't.
You know, I mean, my brother was a nice kid and he didn't win that much. So, you know, it's just a different thing. So I am interested in Mizzou though, because they took like 10th or 11th last year. And like a lot of people were really upset here. And I remember when 10th or 11th would have been a ticker tape parade. And I mean, they have the ability to bounce back because if you said certain placed, and I'm going to pull up their roster real quick, but if you said that certain placed and Cade Moore scored points and those kind of things like that.
I thought their 49-pounder was back from last year that had a couple decent wins. Didn't do anything in nationals.
Yeah, Joffrey.
Yes.
He was hurt at the end of the year too. He was all strapped up, you know.
But he can wrestle.
Yeah. So I'm trying to pull up their roster. So certain 25. They also have Jake Craps and Mauger and Gage Walker. So if somebody were to get hurt there, they'd be fine. Moore at 33, Edmund 41, Joffrey, Pulliam, Zeke Seltzer, Carter McAllister, Jace Roller, all at 49. 57 is going to be Conway, it looks like. And he had some spot starts last year, but, you know, I don't think realistically you can expect a lot. And then it goes Steed, O'Toole, exactly what we said there on the back end.
Yeah.
Aiden Sinclair is somebody who's sitting, who will probably get matches, but he's sitting behind Rocky. Now it's perfect for recruiting, right? Like
Yep.
You recruit him, you get to redshirt, you get to work out with Rocky, then you start. I don't know how many matches he's going to get because you would have him spot fill at a weight where generally, ideally, you're not as good.
Yeah.
So, by the way, Marco, I'm working on getting to the Iowa State duel.
Okay.
Which is like 3.5 weeks. So I think I owe you wings for your Olympic picks, which is a sentence I thought I would never say out loud on recorded airwaves. But
I won something?
You picked more champions than I did.
Oh, okay.
Remember that?
I just
yeah.
For the national contest with writers, I know my name was mentioned one time. So I must have did pretty good for a little while.
Yep. There was one contest where I was second out of like 30 guys, and there was one you were second or third. But it's fun. I mean, that stuff's all fun. Like Willie still owes me a steak dinner. I talked to him yesterday. Like I'm getting my steak dinner down in Oklahoma. I think I am. We'll see. I'll bet you it ends up turning into Chipotle.
Yeah. No, that's kind of a steak.
Kind of. It's not the same as the rancher's house. I'll just say that.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's see if there's anything else before we head out. So we will probably change a couple of our picks for the season because we did not have Ryan Jack redshirting, Jackson Arrington redshirting, Kairini going up, Munoz going up, All Red coming down, Pinto coming down, McDaniel coming in, MJ Gaitan going down. So I think we're allowed to change our picks with more accurate roster projections.
Yep.
And most of those guys won't have wrestled any meaningful matches this weekend. So we may do that next week, get our picks in at heavyweight, calculate our team points. And then I'm interested in seeing like who we think can jump the most from those team points. Like NC State's going to fall in the rankings like it already happened in like with Flo and those guys and Intermat, because you take Ryan Jack and Arrington out, and Kairini, I'm sure, doesn't go to a higher spot at 41 than he was at 33. So, I mean, because there's just a bunch of good guys coming back at 41. I mean, the first three, just off the top of my head, are back. So there'll be a bunch of things to look at. Also, I did a Matt chat yesterday, Mark, with Matt Valenti, who's the head coach in waiting at Penn. He had posted some things on Twitter about roster cap and all that stuff. And you know how much I like talking about it. It was a great hour.
Good.
In fact, I think when we hang up, I may privately send it to you. And then, hopefully when they're done with the Worlds this week, they can get that up next week. So I know his main priority with us is to get this up on a weekly basis and timely, but Matt was really smart and had some different angles on things. So it was enjoyable. It was really good. And I don't think he has a clear solution, because I don't think there's even for sure what the actual problem may be. It's evolving, but he certainly had some insights that I think are worth listening to. And if you love wrestling, at least to kind of be aware of what possible situations are.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, for GT, who's out there killing the game, for Mark, who's back with me, and myself, we appreciate you guys watching and listening, and we will see you all next week.